My wife's family never missed a chance to remind me that I wasn't one of them. From the very first dinner at their polished oak table, I could feel it. The way their eyes lingered a second too long on my suit, the way their smiles froze when I mentioned my job, the way the silence thickened whenever I spoke. It wasn't open hostility. No, they were far too proud for that. It was sharper, the kind of cruelty that hides inside polite words and raised eyebrows. My father-in-law would clap Daniel, my wife's brother, on the back and boom. "Now here's a real man who makes us proud." Then he'd turn to me with a thin smile and ask if my little projects were still keeping me busy. At first, I told myself it didn't matter. I loved my wife, and if enduring a few digs from her family was the price for being with her, then so be it. But the jokes never stopped. At Christmas, her mother looked at the sweater I had chosen for her and said loudly enough for the whole room to hear, "Well, it's the thought that counts. Daniel always brings designer gifts, but this is sweet too." Laughter rippled around the table. Even my wife would sometimes join in, nervously, as if afraid of standing out. I sat there, smiling tightly, pretending it rolled off my back. But inside, I felt smaller with every comment, every laugh, every comparison. And Daniel, the perfect son, always sat there basking in their admiration. He didn't have to mock me directly. His very existence in their eyes was enough to make me invisible. I told myself I could handle it, that I was strong. But I didn't know then how far the game would go, or how fragile their golden image of him really was. The jokes weren't just occasional slips, they were tradition. Every gathering had its ritual humiliation waiting for me. At birthdays, my father-in-law would raise his glass and say, "Here's to Daniel, the son who carries our family name with pride." Then he'd glance at me with that smirk, as if I were the accidental guest who had wandered in off the street. Her mother's favorites were backhanded compliments. One Easter, when I brought over a bottle of wine I'd carefully chosen, she held it up like it was a child's drawing and said, "How thoughtful. Daniel usually brings a vintage worth talking about, but this will do for casual nights." The chuckles around the table felt like daggers. Even my wife, sitting right beside me, would sometimes force a laugh. Not because she believed them, but because she didn't want to fight them. I saw it in her eyes, the silent apology. But apologies didn't erase the sting. And then there was Daniel himself. He didn't need to join in, his silence was enough. He'd sit there polished, confident, soaking up every ounce of praise. "Daniel just closed another big deal," they'd say. "Daniel bought a new car," they'd gush. Meanwhile, I was the good sport they could safely mock, the man who had to endure it all for the sake of harmony. I told myself to ignore it, to rise above. But every barb, every laugh chipped away at something inside me. It wasn't just about me anymore, it was about dignity. And one night, after yet another dinner where my every word was drowned in their laughter, I realized, they didn't just see me as less. They wanted me to believe it too. Daniel was the kind of man who lived like he'd already won. He'd stride into every family dinner wearing a perfectly tailored suit, his watch gleaming under the chandelier, his cologne arriving in the room a full second before he did. To his parents, he was flawless. "Daniel is building something extraordinary," his mother would sigh, as if he were crafting the pyramids with his bare hands. "Daniel's company just landed another contract," his father would beam. Nobody ever asked for details. They didn't care about the fine print. Daniel was success, period. Meanwhile, I was the shadow at the table. The husband with the stable but boring job, the one who drove an old car that rattled in the cold, the one whose gifts were always thoughtful but modest. I worked hard. I always had. I provided for my wife, kept our bills paid, made sure we had a roof over our heads. But compared to Daniel's shiny exterior, none of that mattered. My sacrifices were invisible, while his illusions sparkled like diamonds. The part that cut the deepest wasn't the mockery. It was watching my wife shrink beside me when they spoke, as if she, too, felt the weight of their comparisons. She never said it aloud, but I could see it. The way her cheeks tightened, the way her hand would slip from mine when the laughter grew too loud. Daniel was their son, and the rest of us revolved around him. I thought that was the natural order of things. I thought I just had to endure it. But beneath that perfect glow, there were cracks. Small at first, almost invisible. And soon, one of those cracks would split wide open, and everything they believed about their golden son would collapse in front of their eyes. The night it all boiled over started out like any other family dinner. A long oak table, candles flickering in crystal holders, plates stacked high with food no one really liked but everyone pretended to enjoy. I had spent the entire afternoon preparing. I chose a bottle of wine from a local vineyard, not expensive, but thoughtful. I even ironed my shirt twice, making sure there wasn't a wrinkle left. I told myself, maybe this time, they'll see I'm trying. The moment I stepped through the door, I knew better. Daniel was already there, leaning back in his chair with a glass of scotch, spinning a story about some big investment he was making. Everyone hung on his every word, their laughter loud, their admiration obvious. My wife gave me a soft smile as I walked in, but her eyes were tired. She knew what was coming. I placed the wine on the table, proud for a moment. Her mother picked it up, squinted at the label, and smirked. Oh, charming. A local wine. She set it down like it was a plastic toy. Daniel usually brings something a bit more refined. But this is cute. The laughter followed, rolling over me like a wave. I sat down, cheeks burning, and stared at my plate. Then Daniel leaned over, his voice just loud enough for everyone to hear. Don't worry, man. Not everyone can be a provider. Some of us were born to lead, and some are born to support. The table roared. Even my father-in-law slapped his knee. Something inside me cracked. For the first time, I didn't force a smile. I didn't swallow the insult. I just sat there, staring at Daniel, my knuckles white under the table. Because I knew something they didn't. Something Daniel had no idea I had found out. And soon, the golden sun was going to fall. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying Daniel's smirk, his voice dripping with arrogance. For years I had swallowed it all, the jokes, the sneers, the comparisons. But now, I had something he didn't know I had, the truth. It started a few weeks earlier when I stopped by a downtown cafe on my lunch break. That's where I saw him, Daniel, sitting in the corner, not with business partners, not with colleagues, but with a man I didn't recognize. Their conversation wasn't casual. It was heated, hushed, desperate. I hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but when voices rise, people listen. Words like loan shark, late payments, and if you don't fix this, they'll come after your family, cut through the air. Daniel's face wasn't the polished mask he wore at family dinners. It was pale, twitching, nervous. Later, I brushed it off, convincing myself I misheard. But curiosity gnawed at me. So I did what I never thought I would. I looked closer. I knew the company Daniel bragged about. He never stopped mentioning it. A quick search online pulled up public records. What I found made my stomach twist. The company wasn't thriving. It was drowning. Debt stacked on debt, lawsuits pending, investors pulling out. The golden son wasn't a genius. He was a fraud, barely holding his empire together with lies and borrowed time. That night at the family dinner table, when he mocked me again, I almost blurted it out. I almost tore his perfect mask away right then and there. But I didn't. Not yet. Because if I was going to bring him down, I wanted everyone, his adoring parents, his worshipful mother, my silent wife, to see the truth for themselves. The cracks began to show faster than I expected. 2 weeks later, at another family gathering, Daniel walked in late. No sharp suit this time, just a wrinkled shirt and a tie hanging loose around his neck. His usual confidence had slipped, his smile was forced, brittle. But of course, no one noticed. They only saw what they wanted to see. "Rough day at the office, son," his father chuckled. "That's what happens when you're the man in charge." Everyone laughed, nodding like wise philosophers. I sat silently, my eyes fixed on Daniel. He didn't meet mine. Later that night, while everyone was in the living room, I stepped out onto the porch for air. That's when I heard it, Daniel's voice, low and frantic, coming from the driveway. He was on the phone. "I told you I'd have it. No, don't threaten me again. I said I'll get the money." His hand raked through his hair. "Just give me one more week. Please." I froze, my heart pounding. The words weren't meant for me, but I felt them like punches. This wasn't just debt. This was dangerous. When he hung up, he turned, and for the first time, Daniel looked at me not with smug superiority, but with raw fear. For a brief second, the golden mask slipped, and I saw the truth his family refused to see. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but then closed it and walked past me, shoulders stiff. No smirk. No insult. Just silence. And in that silence, I realized something. Daniel knew that I knew. After that night on the porch, things shifted. Not in public. Oh no, in public Daniel still wore his perfect smile, still soaked up the praise his family showered on him. But when our eyes met, there was no smirk anymore. Just tension. The next family dinner was almost unbearable. His parents bragged louder than ever. "Daniel's company is expanding to new markets," his father boomed. "He's even mentoring younger entrepreneurs," his mother added proudly. My wife nodded along, forcing a smile. I sat there, silent, fighting the urge to laugh. Expanding. Mentoring. He could barely keep his sinking ship afloat. Then came the moment that pushed everything closer to the edge. Daniel raised a glass and said, "To family. The ones who always believed in me." His eyes flicked toward me, just for a second, like a warning. And that's when his phone rang. He excused himself, walking quickly into the hallway. I couldn't stop myself. I followed. His voice was sharp, desperate. "I told you not to call me here. Do you want them to know?" "No, I don't have it yet. Stop threatening me. I said I'll fix it." The call ended, and he spun around, straight into me. His face went pale. "You keep your mouth shut," he hissed. "If you ever mention this, I'll make sure she leaves you. You think my sister will stay with a nobody like you if I tell her what I know?" His words cut deep, but they also confirmed something I'd suspected all along. His power wasn't real. It was fear, manipulation, smoke and mirrors. I didn't answer him. I just stared, calm, steady. And for the first time in his life, Daniel looked nervous under someone else's gaze. The breaking point came at their mother's birthday dinner, the grandest event of the year. They rented a private hall, chandeliers sparkling overhead, long tables dressed in white linen. Everyone was there. Cousins, family friends, even business associates who had heard endless stories of Daniel's brilliance. I knew it was only a matter of time. You can't hold a mask forever, not when the cracks are widening. Halfway through the evening, Just as the waiter brought out the cake, two men in dark suits walked into the hall. They weren't dressed like party guests. They carried themselves with the sharp, stiff posture of men on business. Serious business. They went straight to Daniel. "We need to talk. Now." One of them leaned close, but his voice carried. Heads turned. The room fell into a hush. Daniel stammered, his perfect smile faltering. "And now isn't the time." The taller man cut him off. "The time is up. You've been dodging us for months. Either you settle tonight, or your family finds out exactly how deep in the hole you really are." Gasps rippled around the table. His mother's fork clattered to the floor. His father's face drained of color. My wife covered her mouth with her hand. Daniel looked around wildly, his mask shattering in real time. The golden boy, the success story, the pride of the family, exposed in front of everyone. 4 years, they mocked me, humiliated me, made me feel small. And now, in one brutal moment, their perfect son was stripped bare. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The silence spoke for me. The room erupted like a bomb had gone off. His mother stood, her voice trembling. "Daniel, tell me this isn't true. Tell me they're lying." But Daniel couldn't even look at her. His lips moved, searching for words, but nothing came out. The men in suits stood there, arms crossed, unmoved by the gasps and whispers. His father slammed his fist on the table so hard the glasses rattled. "You made us fools. Do you know how many times I've defended you? Do you know how many people I bragged to?" Daniel's carefully polished image crumbled in seconds. The cousins whispered, the family friends stared, and my wife just sat frozen, eyes wide, as if she'd never seen her brother before. Then Daniel snapped. He pointed at me, his voice cracking. "This is your fault. You knew, didn't you? You've been waiting to humiliate me." All eyes turned to me. I didn't rise from my chair. I didn't need to. My voice was calm, steady, sharper than his rage. "I didn't humiliate you, Daniel. You did that yourself." The silence that followed was heavier than any laughter they had ever thrown at me. 4 years, I had been the outsider, the one mocked, the one dismissed. But in that moment, it wasn't me they saw as small. It was him. And for the first time, I felt taller than all of them. The men in suits didn't linger. They handed Daniel an envelope, muttered something about final notice, and left the hall as abruptly as they'd entered. The echo of their footsteps seemed louder than the music, louder than the whispers, louder than the silence that swallowed the room. Daniel stood there, pale and shaking, clutching the envelope like a lifeline. For once, he had no speech, no charm, no comeback. Just the weight of his lies pressing down in front of the very people who once worshipped him. His mother collapsed back into her chair, tears streaking her perfect makeup. His father stared at the table, jaw clenched, unable to meet anyone's eyes. The cousins avoided looking at him altogether, suddenly fascinated by their untouched plates. And me. I stayed quiet. I didn't gloat, didn't smirk, didn't throw their years of mockery back at them. I didn't need to. The truth was louder than anything I could have said. Later that night, as the party disintegrated into awkward excuses and early departures, my wife slipped her hand into mine. For the first time, she didn't pull away. She didn't try to laugh it off, didn't try to protect her brother. She just held on, tight, like she finally understood what I had endured all those years. When we got home, she whispered, "I'm sorry. I should have defended you. I see it now." I kissed her forehead and said nothing. Because forgiveness, like respect, isn't just given, it's earned. The golden sun had fallen, and with him, the illusion that had ruled their family for years. And me. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had something stronger. The truth. And the truth, finally, was on my side.